Well, I think to understand what technology has changed the game the most, we need to start where we all started. And that is, when we were first coming in, I remember we would actually rent VCRs from the hotel after the games for $125 so we could watch the game. A VCR was big and whatever. Or somebody like Greg Willard had his own VCR in a bag that he would carry, and I actually carried one in my rookie year. And that's how we watched tape. And then the NBA bought us these V8s, 4-inch screen, and we were watching games. You could put it in the TV every once in a while. But we were sitting around this 4-inch screen at halftime watching plays. And then we got a website. The MattWinnickVP.com came. It was literally the worst website ever. It was like, I mean, I don't mean it was not the Matt Winnick.
What do you say when we're not around?
I'm just saying, like, it was like, it had one, like, it took you 38 minutes to download a play. 38 minutes, unless you paid like $41 for high-speed internet in the hotel, and you could get it in like 9 minutes. Like, nowadays, we've downloaded a play in what, like 3 seconds? I mean, that was our technology.
You download other people's plays real fast.
I'm just trying to learn, John, the same mistake you made. But anyway, so where we started, none of us had cell phones when we got hired in the NBA,
no,
right?
We did
I mean,
not.
nobody had.
No.
How we were talked to and communicated with when we got in the NBA was a red light. If you walked in your hotel room and you saw the red light, you went, oh boy, that means the boss didn't like something I did. And so you'd get the red light, yes, call Daryl Garrison. You call Derek Garrison, and he'd scream at you and hang up on you, and that'd be the end of that conversation.
True statement.
Yeah. Well, replay is huge. For when we started, right, we didn't have it at all. So that to me is like the biggest change. But on the floor. But I think the bigger change, Scott, to your point, is the quickness of communication that we can have in discussing plays and the talking to each other and everything else, right? Mm-hmm. Just like life itself, right? So like you were saying, like when we started, I remember my brother teasing me to death about, after a couple of years, he's like, hey man, you need a cell phone. I said, I don't need a cell phone. I got a calling card and I got a pager. Mm-hmm. I said, all right, good. I said, anybody want to talk to me? They're going to have to wait till I get off this plane. I'm going to go over to that pay phone over there, and then I'm going to call them and find out what they want, right? But now we don't have to do that, right? So now it's almost instantaneously with everything. Like you said, after a game, it said you can call and talk to people immediately about different things. So that has changed, to me, has changed tremendously for us. And then on the floor, I just think the biggest thing was, because I remember when instant replay came in, I was like, I wasn't against it, but I was like, oh, I really don't need that. I was like, I already know if the shot is good or not. I said, what do you mean? I said, I've been practicing this for like years already. All right. I said, I already know. And so what was interesting is when it first came in, how so many younger officials were leaning on the fact that, oh, we can go look at this.
Yeah.
And what I was doing is, it was a challenge. Totally. It was a total challenge. It's like, no, I'm gonna call this, and then we're gonna go over there, and you're gonna see that I'm right, right? And I won more than I lost, that's for sure. But it was the difference to me in the mindset that I think we took it upon ourselves to actually challenge the replay, the technology, and it's like, no, I'm as good as that. And they were like, no, I'm just gonna make a call, and I know we're gonna go over there and look at it and get it right.
It's totally, so Hugh Evans, when you work with Hugh Evans, when you work with the Joey Crawfords and the Jake O'Donnells, as a first-year referee, you don't get the opportunity to be the guy who comes in and makes the big call, right? Because they're probably going to beat you to it when you're in your first year. Mm-hmm. But with no replay, my rookie year, my second year, my third year, my fourth year, I would take it like that was a challenge to say there's 280 last-second shots. That's how many 70 games times 4 is 280 quarters where you have the opportunity to go, it's late or it's no good. So if Hugh Evans, a Hall of Fame 30-year veteran, says it's good, and you can walk into Hugh Evans or Ed Rush or any of these veterans, my mentors that I grew up with, and say, hey, that shot was late, and then they take your advice and we take the shot down, and you were right, there was no greater feeling in the world. Absolutely. And so when replay came along, it took away that opportunity to do that for young referees. It also took away the opportunity for us to see who was willing to do that. And so I know you were willing to do that because that's what we did. That's how we were raised by Daryl. Right. And so when replay came along, much like you see in football and every other sport, when replay comes in, now we make calls so that we can use replay. And that's kind of demeans our work, in my opinion. Right. And it actually makes it tougher for young referees to show their moxie out on the court because they can just go, let's go and look at replay. So,
in a lot of instances, I think the more advanced things get, the more they hurt our craft, because we are out there, 3 people standing, and we are victims of people stepping in front of us, whereas the camera is tilted at an angle that if I could sit there, I'd probably get them all right too.
I really think the best thing about technology has made all 5 of us better referees, because we are students of the game. When we came up in our training program, it was on basically the Frederick Douglass program. You had to learn on your own. You had to be a self-starter. And I think that's the truth. That's what all of us are. So when you put video in front of us and gave us the opportunity to see it, we studied it. We studied the players, we studied the coaches, we studied the moves, we studied the pace of the game, the strength of the game, the height of the game. We did all that. So now we're in an era where you can get that right away. That's only going to make us even better than we already are. The thing that I worry about is replay, the current technology piece, people are using as a crutch. And our ability to run a game and manage a game and be strong and have that appearance of strength on the court, I think it diminishes us with replay. Because I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I don't think we need it for as many scenarios as we have.
I think it's funny when we get something right at replay that we got totally wrong during the game, and you hear the announcer go, "That's a great piece of officiating by the officials." And I'm going, "We stunk it up, and then we got saved by replay. How's that great officiating?" You know, that's not great officiating.
Here's a picture. I just sent it to Tom a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
That 8 millimeter.
Oh wow!
I was in my garage going through some stuff, and I found it.
I'll tell you another interesting thing that happened my first year. I don't know, Scott, we may have be sitting beside each other, but one of the veteran referees asked a question. And Scott and I looked at each other and said, that's interesting he asked that question. And now, as you stay here longer and longer, I can understand and appreciate the question that he asked in terms of a rule.
Yeah.
Because the rules have changed drastically. I can tell you clear playoff has probably been changed 6 times at least.
Yep.
We've had the addition of instant replay. We've had the addition
That was
of
one
coaches
page, now
challenge,
it's 14 pages.
Coaches challenge. They've also added a transition take foul. So the mere fact, me personally, because I'm not really smart at all, I got to read that book more now than ever. Than when you first come in the league. That's the only rule that you know. It should be fresh and sharp in your mind. That's the most thing that I find challenging, is that I got to start a little earlier every year, because the brain's just getting too slow and slow and slow.
Speak for yourself, man. The 2 people that I always modeled how to keep going forward, how to keep wanting more, was Danny Crawford and Joey Crawford. They would implement a new rule, and Danny could go to that next game, that next night, and implement it.
Yes.
Me, it probably took about 4 to 6 weeks, because I was fighting part of the rule. But I had to get in there. How Joey would always want to get better, be so hard on himself. And being hard on yourself means you don't need any other person's guidance. So a lot of the stuff you're talking about, being a self-starter and a motivator and all that, I learned that from those 2 guys. But did you always have that in you?
No, I picked a part of something from everybody, whether they were in their 5th year or their 25th year, and just tried to implement it, because certain things you just can't do, but how do you still cater to that person's good side and also implement that into what you can personally do for yourself? Because I never wanted to be anybody else, because they already taken.
Yeah.
But how could I improve the skills that I have, the makeup that I have, to make me be the best person I can be? And that was my whole attitude. Yeah, everybody's going to experience different success, but what's successful for you may not be a success for me.
I modeled what you just said about Joey. For me, it was Ed Rush and Joey. Like, here's Joe Crawford, 50 NBA game finals, and you see him at camp, and he's got the rule book out, and he's got his file, and he's going through every little nuance of the rule. Ed Rush, same way. They were just students of the game in their 30th year, their 35th year, and it's really impressionable in young referees. And I think that's kind of what I try and do with is is try and do what Joey did, is show, hey, this requires work. I don't care if you're in your first year or your 31st year. You have to work at this every day, and if you don't, you're going to be, you're just not going to meet your potential. But Joey's definitely the one that, his fear of failure and all that sort of thing. I mean, Joey had fear of failure before Twitter, So when we got in, clear path was 1 shot in the ball, now it's 2 shots in the ball. Punching foul is 1 shot in the ball, now it's 2 shots in the ball. And so you have all these things that come back, so your brain from 1997 is telling you, hey, I had this in a game already. And then it's that little voice in the back of your head saying, but this is how, are we sure about this? Opposing coach bench to get the shooter in? And then ultimately you rely on your experience and you get through it. But there's always a little voice in the back of your head kind of reminding you that the rule used to be this. And so that's why it's important to know all the history of the rules. And, it helps me to kind of have right over here where it says, this was the rule, this is the rule, and so I have that book and I look at it, it helps. But adapting the rules, it's all the rules that have been put in my opinion, have helped us do our jobs better and easier. So I can't think of one rule where I go, oh man, that really,
It's not fair.
That hurt. That really hurt. And this, like the new one with the out of bounds, that's going to help us. I mean, how many times have you gone to replay and you called the play, you gave it back to the team that probably should get the ball out of fairness, and you get over there and you find out it went off his last nail. Oh, and by the way, he got fouled.
Yeah.
And you were trying to do what was right for the game, and now you've been put in a position where you can't do what's right for the game, and now they're going to give that ability to us. What a novel idea, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, it's long overdue. It's just like the going for the restricted area when it first came in. You couldn't use the LDB as a part of the ruling, which made zero sense because it's a part of the rule. But those changes. But to get back to your question about how many changes, don't know. It's
if 31 years, you talk about 2 a year, 60, probably 60.
Yeah, but the other part is, to your point, I think what happens with us, at least it happens with me, is the problem with the confusion is, which is why you have to read the rules on an ongoing basis, is I studied the rules so much at the beginning that I remembered that rule, and then you changed it. And now I studied that rule, but I didn't forget the original rule.
Right.
Right? So now I got them both in my head, and I'm like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. No, it's 1 shot. And it's like, no, it's 2 shots. No, it's like, no. I say, all right, hold on. I gotta slow it down. So that becomes part of our problem. Our challenge is because we remember everything and we've studied it. We're so disciplined in trying to be on top of the rules. I gotta stay fresh with it now, because when they start changing them, then I gotta try to forget the old rule, but it's still there, right? But that's part of our whole discipline of being that astute about everything that we do, that we retain that. And so at times what I have to do is I have to talk to people. It's like, hey, clear path, right? 2 shots in the ball, right? Anybody can shoot, right? Oh, no, what do you mean? It's like, oh, okay, and I was just testing you.
Here's a question. If it was one rule you could change or a rule you can implement, what would it be?
For me,
For me, it would be how they do it in the Olympics. You get a technical
Basket.
foul,
Okay.
it is a personal foul and a technical foul. Because I've noticed that once people get text, or after a couple games when they get text, they stop complaining.
I think if I could change one rule, I'm going to get away from what y'all are talking about. I think it'd be the basket interference. We should do what they do at FIBA, where you can just take it off and put it in and all that good stuff. I think it'd make my job much easier, and I also think it would be more exciting.
It'd be exciting.
It would reduce
No, it would be exciting.
replay 5 pages.
Yes, it would. We can get rid of replay.